Hi there, good morning. I hope you're well. So, welcome to the February monthly UK House Price Index. This is the information that is made available to us from the Land Registry, and it gives us a real in-depth look at the Scottish house market and how it's performed over the last 12 months. This report is up to December. There is a kind of couple of months lag on that just with regards to Land Registry and when the information is available. But the December information is available now, and some of the economic statement information is really good and really positive about where the market is going. There may be some impacts to that, as we would expect. Bank of England interest rates obviously make a big difference, and those reduced, thankfully, by 0.25% to 4.5% in February. The next review for the Bank of England interest rates is expected on the 20th of March, so certainly one to watch out for. Things that impact that, according to the Bank of England, are inflation rates. And if you've not already seen that, then you will know that inflation rates rose to 3% in February. It is actually anticipated that it will slowly rise again. And up to quarter three of 2025, it's expected actually that inflation rates might be 3.7%. So that's a big jump. The Bank of England, when they're looking at reducing interest rates, generally base the reductions around about inflation of 2%. So to be sitting at 3% just now and the potential of it going to 3.7% in quarter three, yeah, beg some questions. They do, however, see a slower decline. So actually they might stabilise and be around about the 3.5%, 3.7%, and then start to come down to about 2% by 2027. But I mean, that's 2 years away. So it'll be really interesting to see how that's going to impact us. What does inflation mean and how does it impact us? So inflation basically is driven by what we're buying and what we're paying for it and what the costs of those items are. The primary drivers are increased costs in food, which is not a surprise. I think we're all seeing that when we go to the supermarket, aren't we? That our food costs are definitely increasing. So food is a big impact to it, particularly meat and bread, actually. And again, you've probably seen that if you're out doing your shopping. So private school fees, they are impacting it as well. Smaller than usual increase as well in airfares, leading to higher overall costs in transportation. As I say, this resulted in inflation jumping to 3%. And when we look at those key points, rising food costs, a significant contributor to the increased inflation rate was the higher price of food, meats and breads. I think we're all seeing that, as I said, when we look at our baskets when we go to the supermarket. So that's really impacted inflation. Increased education costs as well have impacted. And again, that's due to the government taking away the VAT exemption. So what that's done is then push inflation upwards slightly as well. The transport sector has impacted it. So while airfares prices did decrease, the decline was not as substantial as we would normally see. So the contributing factors have seen transportation costs increase. Policy implementations as well. So the unexpected jump in inflation, the Bank of England actually might consider either freezing or increasing interest rates. So it'll be really interesting to see how that's going to impact things. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But the economic statement that has been introduced today from the UK House Price Index, and again, as I say, this comes from the Land Registry. Average house prices in Scotland overall have increased by 6.9% in the 12 months to December from December 2023. So that's great to see that coming through. That's a provisional estimate. We do have a 2-month lag on that, but certainly the information available at Land Registry just now, that's what it's telling us. This was up from 5.9 at the 12 months to November. So again, a positive higher increase for property values. The annual price inflation of 4.6 is a provisional estimate for the previous December. But I think if we're seeing it at 6.9, that's a really good increase on Scottish house pricing. So on a non-seasonally adjusted, and what do we mean by seasonally adjusted? So the information that is available to December, what that won't take into account is some of the stats that are going to come through January and February. So what they do is they predict what it will be. And then once the actual facts come through in January and February, they'll build that back in and then they'll revise that number. But generally that number doesn't revise by a great deal. So we would expect to see it still coming around about that number. So if we look at the seasonally adjusted for the previous month, they still saw that it was like 1.2% difference. So when you're comparing that to your 6.9, it wasn't really a large sum in regards to what your value of your property is going to be. Comparing the provisional UK house price index volumes, so what we're looking at in volumes is basically transactions. So transactions mean keys handed over, money's in the bank, property has actually exchanged. So it's no longer under offer, it has sold, it has completed, and the new owners are in their properties. So when we look at the seasonally adjusted transaction numbers, they actually increased by 19.7% in Scotland, and increased to 23% across the UK wide. That is up until the end of October. So again, we've got that lag there as well, but that's something that can't be controlled until the full data is available. But it's an interesting thing to see that actually nearly 20% of increased volumes over that 12-month period in Scotland are actually transacting. So that's really positive. That is what we judge the health of the property market. We don't judge it on the value. Values are great, obviously, if your prices are going up, but actually it's on the transactions and the completions, because those are true numbers. They have actually physically happened. And if those are high, then actually what that is doing is supporting not just the housing market, all the chain that supplies to the housing market. So estate agents like myself, it's removal firms, electricians, gas people, your decorators, your gardeners, your fencing companies, your kitchen suppliers. So all of those businesses really enjoy the benefits of a good housing market. So really important that those numbers are going up, and great for us to be able to see that. So in Scotland, what type of properties are primarily attractive to people? So what we're seeing is detached houses had the highest percentage increase, and they changed by 9.3% in the months of December. We then saw them coming in at average detached property of £356,000. Your flats and your masonettes are the lowest annual percentage increase change. Those are 4.5% that they have increased by, but it's still an average of £133,000. So again, really strong market in regards to pricing and affordable housing as well. In Scotland, 31 of the 32 local authority areas showed an increase in their average house prices in the 12 months to December. The highest annual percentage change was in Inverclyde, where average house prices increased by 11.1% to December, which was an average of 113,000. We will then look at all of the other areas, and I'll cover those off with you when we get to those. The Scottish Borders, their average house prices only rose by 1.6%. So you can see a fluctuation there. But again, their average house price is 176,000. So when you look at where we are as an average over Scotland as a whole, where the average price is 189,000, they're not far away from that. And I'll just show you the highlight stats of that. Let me just add that to you. So you can see there, the average price of a property in Scotland was 189,000. These are the highlights of the report. The annual price change of a property in Scotland was 6.9%. The monthly price change in Scotland was minus 0.05%, but the index figures for Scotland show a really good increase of 107.8%. So really positive changes in regards to what the property market is looking like. So that is a really positive picture. Let me just have a little look at some of these other screenshots. So what I'm going to do now is talk to you about what the annual price change looks like, and I'll give you a little graph that shows you what that is. Give me 1 wee second and we'll just find that file. And this gives you a really good insight to it. So you can see the graph there. I've taken myself out of it just because it's easier for you to see here, otherwise it'll be too small. So you can see the annual price changes. So December 20, you're sitting here at about 8% increase. But over the last 5 years, a substantial change. So clearly when we went into COVID, we saw massive hikes in property values and exchanges, didn't we? And then it slowly declined when we came out of it into June 23, but we can see that it is rising again. And we're now up at almost the same as we were December 20. So it gives us good insight as to regards to what the annual price change looks like. If we then look at the local authorities, so this I think is really beneficial as well. So we're going to cover all of the areas that we operate in just for your information. So if you look at the December 24 listing here versus December 23, and then the last column gives you your differences in percentages of increase. If we look at Angus, for instance, in December 24, it was 164,743 was your average house price versus December 23, 158,557. So that's an increase of 3.9%. So really strong market there in Angus. If we look at the City of Dundee, again, they've increased by 7.6%, as you can see. So they've jumped from 136,400, say, to 146,800 nearly. So again, City of Dundee really performing well. If we look at Edinburgh, they're sitting at 7% increase year on year, going from 270,000 up to 288,000. If we then look at Glasgow, they've got an increase of 7.3, so pretty similar trends throughout Scotland as you're seeing. they were 171,600. They're now up to 184. If we then go to Dumfries and Galloway, 5.8%. You would expect that to be slightly less because you don't have the same amount of transactions there. So that's 151,000 increased up to 160. Eastern Bartonshire, 2.8. Again, geographics there. 251,700 increased to 258,600. We then go on to East Lothian, 4.3%, 279,000 up to 291. And then if we jump to Fife as well, 4.3% increase year on year. So 162,000 versus 169,000 as your average prices in Fife. Let's check out Mid Lothian. They always perform really strongly, 7.6%. So it's gone from 269, say, to 290 almost. So big increases there. And then if we look at Perth and Kinross, so you've got your Perth and Kinross areas here as well. So 6.9%. So that's gone from 211 to 226. And then if we look at Western Bartonshire at the bottom, you can see Western Bartonshire again performing well, 7.5% increase. So it's gone from 117 to 126. And West Lothian, 6.2%, gone from 208 to 220. So really strong performances there. So I think you can see that the property values across Scotland have really improved, and we're seeing anything really in the region of 4.3% up to 7.5%. So that's a really good trend year on year. It shows the market's stronger, the transactions are going up as well, and that's what we want to see. We also want to get an indicator though of what the property types look like and what your geographical areas are looking like. So your average property types again are really important, and let me just show you what that looks like. Go 1 wee second, I'll just get that file for you. So if we look at the map, so that was the numbers that we looked at, and that shows you the geographics, again, just where your hotspots are. So your Edinburgh areas are in your dark red, you can see those. So that's where you've got 230,000 or more. You're jumping over then to your Fife, which was around about your 170, 189. And then you're going over to your Dundee numbers again, where you were around about the 190, 209. So just gives you the kind of mapping look of those numbers we discussed. But if we then look at the average price change by property type, so again, this is really important. You know, you may have this type of property, you may be thinking of moving, you maybe don't realise actually what your property is worth, and it's giving you good insight as to potentially when is the right time for you. You might want to downsize as well. You may be sitting in a detached just now and think, actually, we don't need that. We can go down to a terrace, free up some financial freedom, and, you know, just make some discoveries on your own life. So the detached properties in December 23 and to December 24 have improved by 9.3%. So the average detached property in Scotland at the moment is 355,539. You can see your semi-detached gone up by 8.1%. So it's jumped from 197 to nearly 214. Your terrace as well, so really affordable, an 8% increase, going from 158 to 171. And your apartments and masonettes, 4.5% increase. So they've jumped from 127 on average to 133 nearly. So your average price, as you can see, the increase that we mentioned earlier, where it was 189 at 6.9% increase. So really strong numbers there. It gives you a good insight to what that looks like. But as I mentioned earlier on, the transaction part is a really important part. This is really important for you to see. So if we look at these numbers, it gives you an idea of actually how strong that area is. So whilst the prices are going up in some of the locations, as I said earlier on, it's not necessarily just about the value, it's about, well, how many are transacting in that area, because you may well have a house worth that, but if it doesn't sell and you don't get the cash for it, then it's not a strong market, is it? So if we look at Angus, for instance, from October 2023, they've jumped from 155 transactions on average to 178. So again, marginal increase, but a positive increase all the same. If we then look at the city of Dundee, they've gone from 184 to 243. That's a really large increase. That's almost a 20% jump. So really positive in the city of Dundee in regards to the actual transactions that are happening there. If we look at Edinburgh, 811 to 1,069. So similar performance to Dundee actually in regards to that percentage. And also the city of Glasgow, 911 to 1,048. So that's about a 10% increase. So really positive numbers there. If we look at East Lothian, it's gone from 195 to 216. So a marginal increase, but an increase nonetheless. And then if we look at Fife, 504 to 587. So that's about 15% actually in regards to the increase there in Fife as well. But again, we saw that even in the values. So really positive, the Fife market just now, certainly seeing transactions jumping from 504 to 587 is a positive situation for us to be in. If we look at North Lanarkshire, 433 to 501. So again, really positive there as well. And then if we look at the Western Bartonshire at the bottom, you can see 113 to 124. And then West Lothian 222 to 275. So really positive numbers there. Important for us to see those. Just shows you how things are impacting and the positivity that's coming around the market. Really good to see that the market is strong in regards to the values increasing, but also the transactions as well increasing. And as I said at the beginning, it really does depend for us in regards to how quickly will that market continue. I think people have got faith in it. I think people are fixing their mortgages. We've seen mortgage rates come down. Okay, they're only at 4.5% compared to the -2% in some areas we were getting a few years ago. But actually, it's still a strong market to be in. It's an affordable market. And I think if we look at the property statuses as well in regards to what people are buying, it gives you good insight to what they're spending their money on. What we're seeing in regards to that is the property statuses are either new builds or they're existing resold property. So a property that's been owned previously and it's resold. That's what it says on the tin. So at the moment, what we're seeing is the average house price for a new build that's selling at the moment, the monthly change on that went down by 1.2%, but it still has an annual change of a positive of 19%. So the average new build property is £339, 414. If we then look at existing resold, so pre-owned properties, they have still increased on the month by 0.5%, but it's an annual change of 3.4%. Your existing resale properties on average are selling for about £175,000. So a bit of a difference there. You can see that that's literally about 160,000 more than a new build property. There's a lot of elements going to the new build market at the moment as well. You have all of the qualifications in regards to rebuild, in regards to what their EPC is. So what I mean by that is what's their energy performance and what does that certify it. And builders now are being really taken on board the fact that they've got to environmentally be friendly as well. And the best EPC that they can provide generally costs money, which is why you're seeing those new build prices much higher than the resale property values. But again, it's interesting when you look at actually the buyer status of the people that are buying those properties. So these are changing quite often and actually have switched around almost last month in regards to the monthly changes. So your first time buyers, they are averagely spending 154,000 on their first property. So that was a drop of 0.7% on the month, but an annual change still of a positive of 6%. So you can see that the first time buyers are coming to market, they are spending their money and they are securing mortgages as well. So that's a really positive step. And that will be what's impacting that transaction numbers that we're seeing as well. So really positive in regards to that. Your former owner occupiers, so your people that have bought before and they're maybe downsizing, upsizing, they are showing a reduction on the month of 0.2, so not insurmountable really. The annual change of 7.7%, and the average house prices for former owner occupiers is 236,991, so nearly 237,000. So you can see there's about a 50% increase in regards to that. But your first time buyers, they're doing what they're doing, they're getting on to the property ladder and they're helping create that property mix and people going on to then buy other properties. So it's really important that we have that. Really interesting, the next topic actually is what are they buying it with? Is it cash? Is it with a mortgage? How does that impact you as a seller? How does that impact you as a buyer? I was having a conversation with a client the other day and they were saying, we don't actually want to sell at the moment. We've been speaking to family and friends. We're a little bit concerned because, there's going to be a chain. People are going to have to sell their houses. We're worried about that. We'll just wait for a cash buyer. And I know the value of this property is in excess of 300,000. So I had a conversation with them around this because what is evident now is that your actual cash buyers, since the governmental changes with second home taxes, we're definitely seeing that there's not as many second home buyers out there that have the cash to do so. The cash buyer market was 12 months ago was sitting at 14.5% of the Scottish market were cash buyers. That has dramatically changed. It's now sitting at 5.8% of people are cash buyers. But it's not just the percentage that's changed, it's actually even the volume of cash that they have. So the average cash buyer at the moment is willing to spend 173,752 in cash on a second home or their new property. That's a big difference in regards to 12 months ago, when that figure was around about the 250,000 mark. So if you've got a property that's 250 plus, then you may need to reassess what you think you want to do in regards to who your perfect buyer is. It may not be your cash buyer. There are some cash buyers out there, obviously, that will have that sum. This is an average at the end of the day. But if your average person is coming forward with just under 174,000, that makes a big difference in the market when the average property in this location is 189. So something really just for you to think about. And if you'd like some guidance on that, absolutely feel free to reach out. The person that is spending through a mortgage, that could be first-time buyers, resellers, varying, that has an annual change of 7.6% that has gone up by, and your average mortgage person is spending £196,782 on a property. So your average house in Scotland is 189. Your mortgage people are 196. So you can see that they are buying maybe those higher end semi-detached, detached properties that are obviously costing much more money. So definitely something for you to consider in regards to where you are, in regards to who you're picking as your buyer. Something to think about again is also, as we spoke about earlier on, is the inflation and how that may impact you. But actually, overall, a really positive month. Great to see those transaction numbers going up. Great to see the people that are buying going up in regards to the percentages. So all in all, a really positive picture. One that we're very happy with, of course, because it's great for you. You can make your life choices and go on and basically live your dreams, because things happen all the time, don't they? We can't always control those. If you do have any questions, if there's something in here that I've mentioned that you'd like a little bit more information on, certainly feel free to message me directly. And likewise, you can just contact the team. You can message us here. You can contact any of our offices. All of the information's in these links. And it's Perrie at Fife Property TV, covering the whole of Fife, Glasgow, Edinburgh and Dundee. Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.